Okay, so I'm going to talk to you tonight about mobilizing the hips and helping them stretch them out and helping them to move independently of one another. So, a few points about hip anatomy and the hamstrings. So, your hips are here and they are not fused at the point where they touch towards the bottom of the pubic bone. They actually have a piece of cartilage in between and they attach to that. And that cartilage gives them just enough flexibility to allow them to move independently of each other and also independently and rotate at the points where it's attached to the spine. Towards the bottom of the um, hip bone near the pubic bones, your hamstrings attach at those points there. And all of these things kind of work together to allow you to walk, run, bike comfortably by having each hip be able to move independently of the other. What happens and why we get such tight hamstrings comes from sitting for prolonged periods over our lifetime. We, flex the pelvis and it's in this flex position. So the hamstrings shorten. And then we go to walk or run or bike and we get feelings of stiffness or pain or pulling through the hamstrings. So this movement I'll show you, you can do at any uh, phase of your mobility, even if you have full range of motion in the hamstring and it's fully extended and stretched. You can do this exercise even if you can't flex or if you don't have good flexion or extension in the hamstring either or in the pelvic bone. So what you basically need is some kind of rope for the foot. So you can use a rope band like this or some band with some flexibility if you have particularly bad mobility, like if you can't really reach the ground, your hamstrings are particularly tight, something with a little give would be good. But for tonight, just going to use one of these yoga bands. And so here, basically, to see your progress, you will want to see how good you can reach the floor. So the forward folding bend, the forward bend, this lets us kind of take the temperature of our hamstrings. So when we flex forward, we should see how close we can get to the floor with a flat back. So I'm pretty mobile. My hands come down all the way to the ground, and I do feel a little bit of tightness in my hamstrings, but not too bad. But this is sometimes what we see when people say, "Oh, I can touch the ground." They get to about here and do this, and they're actually rounding the back to touch the ground. Instead, you want to see that you can reach the ground with a flat back and get the palms of the hands on the ground. So that would be where to start to kind of see how tight the hamstrings are. So if you can get down here, or if you can't straighten the legs and they're bent and you're bending down like this and it's a real struggle, this is a sign to work on these hamstrings and using this move. So you would come down to the floor with your band and you're going to lay on your back. The key with this movement is isolating the hamstring and the hips because that's what we want to move. We don't want the spine to help. And so in order to keep the spine and the abs and those upper hip flexors out of action and focusing right in on the hamstrings and the hip, you're going to want to lock down your core. So normally when you're just laying relaxed, you have some space under your back here. You can a little arch. That's kind of a neutral spine position. What you want to do is close that down. So you're going to flex the lower abs by doing a bracing motion or bringing the ribs down to the point of the pelvis so that you can't get your hand under your back anymore. So close that arch. When you're in that position, you're going to bring your feet up and tie the band around one foot and just bring the feet up in the air as comfortably as you can. So sometimes it's like this. I've seen this. I've seen this. Wherever you start, it's good because you're going to get a good stretch doing this. Now, you've got your core locked down, so you don't have the arch in your back. And now what you're going to do is you have one leg stationary You're going to keep that leg stationary and you're going to lower and extend the opposite leg slowly, as slow as you can and as far as you can until you find that the abs can't hold that position anymore. So once your lower back starts to lift off the ground, that's the range of your mobility. So you want to bring it back. And what you don't want to do either is you don't want to keep pulling this leg. So this isn't really the best way to stretch the hamstring for this particular movement because we're really focusing on getting the hips to move independently of one another. So this just is a gentle hold right in place. So you want to do that maybe 5 or 10 times, and then you can switch to the other side. If you need to, you can relax the core because it is quite intense trying to keep your core locked down like that. So you can give it a rest, come back, close, lock that core up again, bring the feet back up, and then work on the other side. Slowly extend. You'll notice my feet are flexed. And again, you're only extending to the point where you feel the abs start to break or lengthen because you really just want to isolate that hamstring and the hip. And so once you've done that about 10 times on each side, you will feel, oh, after you relax out of that, you kind of feel some heat in here, some warmth where you've, rotated the hips. And so that's a nice time to then move into something else, either your workout if you want to, or some ridges where you can flex your hips. And that's basically the movement that I wanted to show you tonight. After you're done with that, you can kind of get back up and then check again your mobility to see how well it loosened up the top of the hamstrings. And you can try your forward fold again and see if you are able to get some more length there. If the length is not where you want it and you think you can do better, go back down and do another set of those. But you can try 10 leg lowers on each side. Eventually, as you increase your mobility, we'll be able to do them without the band assisted. So you will be able to hold the core in, have complete flexibility in the hamstrings so you can extend the hamstrings fully and you can move and lower the leg while keeping the other leg stationary. So it's a really good one to do before you go for a run or a walk. And it's also really great to do if you're sitting for an extended period of time. Get down on the ground and get your hips mobilized. Stretch those hamstrings because hamstring problems, when we have tight hamstrings, they lead to knee problems, they lead to hip problems. Our back will get out of whack, our lumbar spine will get out of whack to support that. So a lot of those back, knee, hip problems that we feel, they come from sitting too long, and then getting those hips to release and work independently of one another and mobilizing is really helpful for that.